Hi everyone, this is bonus block number 3 for our block of the month challenge. If you're not already participating and you'd like to join in, check the description under this video for a link to my Facebook group where you can find all the information you need. If you're planning to cut this fabric by hand, you'll need 3 colors, light, medium, and dark, the light for your background. From each of these colors, you want to cut 2 squares, 4 7/8 inch, and cut again once on the diagonal. You'll also need to cut from each fabric 1 square, 5 1/4 inch, but you'll cut twice on the diagonal to make the smaller triangles that you see in our pic. We're going to start by laying out our entire block so that it's easier to assemble. As you can see, there are a lot of pieces. So as I'm laying it out, I'm going to refer to these as large or small triangles. So let's get going. Your first piece is a large background triangle. Mine are white with yellow dots. So a large background. Then you have a large medium color. Next we have a large medium color. And we have a small background. And we have a small dark color. And for our final square on the top row, we have a large background color. And we have a large dark color. That's our first row. For our second row, we have a small medium color. We have a small background. And we have a large dark. For the second, we have a small dark. We have a small medium. A small dark again, and a small medium again. So this center square is made up of 4 small pieces. And you can already begin to see how we get the shape of the pattern. For our last on the second row, we're going to use a large dark. You can see that square coming also. We're going to use a small medium and a small background. So now you have your 2 rows laid out. Our final row, we have a large dark and a large background fabric. By background all through this, I mean the lightest fabric is your background fabric. Then we have a large medium. We have a small dark. And we have a small background. That's your middle block square. For the last square, we have a large medium color. And we have a large background fabric. So this is how your block is laid out so that you get this card trick pattern. It looks more complicated than it is. Once you have it laid out properly, it's really easy from there. So the first thing we're going to do is sew together our 4 corners. The large pieces We're going to put them right sides together, and we're going to sew a 1/4 inch right along, press our seam to set it, and then when you press open, you press your seam towards the dark fabric, and we're going to do the same for all 4 outside corners. It's easiest to get started by getting all the 4 outside corners done. So I'll get that done, press it, and I'll be back to show you. Mention that you want to be super accurate with your seams. This pattern is meant to finish at 12.5 square, your block, 12.5 inches. So you want to make sure that your seams are super accurate. I'm even going to do a scant 1/4 inch seam to make sure that I'm not short on my finished block. And here we go. I've got my 1/2 square triangles complete. So we're going to place them back where they belong. There's one. Make sure I'm putting them back in the right place. 2, 3, and my 4th. And you can see that I've done a scant 1/4 inch for my seam and pressed towards the dark side. I was very careful to be very accurate on my seam allowance. We don't want to ruin our block because our seam allowance is off. Okay, so now we have these other pieces to do. So for these, I'm going to pick them up one at a time so I don't mix the pieces up. We don't want to do that. So we have this, the 2 small triangles. I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam right along, or a scant 1/4 inch seam. Press it to set it, and press it open with the seam going towards the dark side. Once I have that assembled as a 1/2 triangle, or as a triangle, I'm going to sew it to this 1/2. So I'll be back to show you in detail. Okay, so that you can see this better. These are the 2 small triangles assembled together. I will put them here. Now I'm going to flip this over. You can see that again I've done a 1/4 inch seam and press it very well towards the dark side. And now I'm going to complete the 1/4 inch seam to assemble this into one square. Okay, we have that square done. You can see that the size is lining up really nice. Our top row should be really nice and accurate. Now we're going to repeat the same thing for these and for this one. So as you go, the 2 small triangles together, scant 1/4 inch seam, press to set and press the seam towards the dark side, and then assemble it with your large triangle. So we'll go ahead and do that. Make sure I haven't mixed them up. That's one thing you want to be careful about. You want to make sure you haven't mixed them up. A good way to be careful is to lay them together as they should go. And then maybe just throw a pin in the side that you want to be sewing on, because if you sew on the wrong side, it won't fit together properly. So I'm going to go ahead and get these other 3 done, and I'll be back to show you how we assemble the center. So now we need to assemble this center square, and you don't want to mix up the pieces. So let's just move this away. We want to sew this here and this here to make 2 triangles, and then we will join them together. So I'm going to lay them on top of each other. And this is where I need to be sewing, so I'm just going to put a pin in it as a reminder so that I don't sew on the wrong edge. and then again this one, and again put a pin in it so I don't sew on the wrong edge. So I'm going to get these two done, pressed, and press them open with the seam going towards the dark side, and I'll be back to show you what I finally do. So we now have two triangles, and I've pressed my seam always towards the dark side so that when I assemble these, let's make sure these are right. They are. Always double check to make sure you're laying it out properly. That's proper. So when I assemble these, I'm able to nest those two seams so you don't end up with a big bulky lump right in the center of your block. So you want to make sure you're nesting those seams, one going to the left, one going to the right, and the little seam is butted right up against each other. I like to put a pin in it just to make sure it doesn't move while I start sewing. We'll line up the edges and we'll sew a 1/4 inch right along. Press well to set your seam. Put that down. I have all seams as a scant 1/4 inch, and then I've pressed everything towards the top. We have all 9 squares assembled, and now we're going to turn them into rows. Once again, I'm going to continue using a scant 1/4 inch because I want to make sure that I don't make my block too small. There's a lot of seams in this block. So here we go. I see that I should have pressed one seam in the other direction. That's no problem. I can just fold it over and press it down. So we'll do that again. The center block to the left. I'm going to make sure that I nest my seams so I get a nice point on this block. I'll put a pin in it to make sure it doesn't move. We have some flying pins. There we go. I'll make sure it doesn't move, and I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch right along this edge, a scant 1/4 inch. And here we go. You can see that I have a nice point by nesting my seam. I've pressed this seam towards the center. I have a lot of trimming and cleaning up to do that I will do at the end. So that's our first, and we want to make sure that we do the same with this one. We want to nest our seams, get them lined up really nice. Once again, I'll put a pin in it. Make sure everything lines up nice and straight so that you get a really nice finish on it. And I'll be back to show you this one. And here's our top row done. You can see that I have nice clean points because I nested everything. I've pressed my seams towards the inside on this row. On this second row, I will press my seam towards the outside, and then on the bottom row towards the inside again. You want to be sure to always be nesting your seams and to press super well. You don't want to stretch your fabric though, you want to press. Put heat on it, press down so that you set your seams and you get a nice clean finish. So I'm going to go on and finish these 2 rows, and I'll be back to show you the final steps. And here we go. So we have our 3 rows assembled, and it's really a fun block. So now all we have to do is sew the top to the center and the bottom to the center, making sure to nest all our seams, making sure We don't have any big lumpy bulk in it. If you see something that needs to go in the opposite direction, just move it over, pin it, and you'll press it once you have your seam in place. But most important of all is that you nest all your seams and you press really well to get a super nice finish. I need to cut off all that excess. I will do that as I work, making sure my seams are nested. And everything lines up well. Don't forget the seams you have on the corners. You want to nest those too. So that's the top to the middle, and then I'll repeat for the bottom to the middle, super press, clean up all my seams, and we'll be done with this block. I'll be back. And here are our first 2 rows assembled. You can see that I've taken good care to nest all my seams, so I have really nice clean points on the ends. That looks terrific. And now I'm going to repeat this with the bottom. Again, absolutely make sure that you nest your seams so you get a nice finish. Press well, and we'll be all done. I'm going to get this sewn together, and I'll be back to show you my finished block. And here is our finished card trick block. I hope you're going to enjoy making it. Once again, you can find a link to my Facebook group in the description under this video if you'd like to join in on our Block of the Month challenge. Thank you for watching.